The Christmas
Hi,
Café
sorry I'm
was
a bit
warm and
late.
glowing
No
with
problem at
soft
all.
yellow
You look
lights, the
great.
kind that made the
Thanks.
cold
This place is
outside
lovely,
feel
isn't it?
distant and unreal. Snow tapped gently against the glass windows, while inside, the smell of coffee and cinnamon filled the air. At a cornered table sat a man in a tailored coat, posture calm, eyes distant, a single cup of black coffee untouched. He was alone, not lonely, just quietly present. No one knew he was the CEO of a global company. To them, he was simply another customer enjoying the holiday calm. The cafe hummed with low conversations and laughter, but his table remained empty except for him and his thoughts. The door opened with a small chime, letting in a sharp gust of winter air and a young girl wrapped in an old, thin coat. Her shoes were worn, her scarf frayed, and her hands trembled as she rubbed them together for warmth. She paused just inside the door, eyes scanning the room nervously, counting empty chairs. The cafe was full, families and couples celebrating Christmas together. She swallowed, clutching a small coin purse, clearly unsure if she belonged in a place like this. Her stomach growled softly, unheard by everyone except herself. She stepped forward carefully, her gaze landing on the only empty chair she could see, the one across from the man sitting alone. She hesitated, her feet glued to the floor as doubt crept in. Places like this usually meant judgment, whispers, or being asked to leave. Still, the cold outside was unforgiving, and her courage, though fragile, pushed her forward. She walked slowly to the table, eyes downcast, heart pounding as if it might escape her chest. Stopping beside the chair, she finally looked up at the man. Her voice was soft, almost breaking, as she asked, "Is this seat only for the rich?" The words hung in the air, heavier than the falling snow outside. Nearby conversations continued, unaware of the moment unfolding. The man looked up, surprised not by the question, but by the honesty behind it. He studied her face, tired eyes, flushed cheeks, and a dignity that hardship hadn't erased. For a second, he said nothing. The girl braced herself for rejection, fingers tightening around her purse. Memories of being turned away flashed through her mind. But instead of annoyance or mockery, the man's expression softened. He glanced at the empty chair, then back at her, as if seeing something far beyond her worn clothes. The cafe lights reflected in his eyes as he finally spoke, his tone calm and warm. "This seat is for anyone who needs it," he said gently, pulling the chair back. The girl blinked, unsure if she'd heard correctly. Slowly, she sat down, still half expecting someone to tell her to leave. The man signaled the waiter, ordering hot chocolate and a pastry without asking for permission or explanations. The girl's eyes widened, gratitude and disbelief mixing together as steam rose from the cup placed before her. She wrapped her hands around the mug, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. The first sip made her close her eyes, a quiet smile forming despite herself. The man watched her, saying nothing, allowing the moment to exist without pressure. Outside, snow continued to fall, but inside, something shifted, an invisible barrier quietly breaking. For the first time that day, the girl felt safe. After a while, she spoke again, telling him she had come into the city looking for work for her mother, who was sick. Christmas had come, but hope felt far away. She spoke quickly, as if afraid he might stop listening. The man listened without interruption, without glancing at his phone or watch. Each word seemed to matter to him, and that alone made her feel seen. He shared little about himself, only that he once knew what it felt like to be invisible. Years ago, before success found him, he too had been judged by appearances. The girl looked at him with curiosity, trying to reconcile his calm confidence with the story he told. It didn't matter who he was now, in that moment, he was simply someone who understood. The cafe grew louder as more people came in from the cold, but their table felt like its own quiet world. The girl ate slowly, savoring every bite, afraid the moment might end too soon. The man noticed how carefully she handled the food, as if it were precious. He realized that kindness, to someone like her, wasn't a grand gesture, it was survival. When the waiter returned with the bill, the girl instinctively reached for her purse, embarrassment flooding her face. The man gently shook his head, placing his card on the tray. "Consider it a Christmas gift," he said. Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded, unable to speak. The cafe lights blurred as she tried to hold herself together. She whispered a thank you, her voice trembling with emotion. It wasn't just about the food or the warmth, it was about being treated like she belonged. The man smiled, realizing that success meant nothing if it couldn't be shared in moments like this. Outside, a car passed, its headlights briefly illuminating the snow, like a silent witness to the exchange. As she finished her drink, the man asked about her dreams. The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that in a long time. She hesitated, then spoke about wanting to study, to help her family, to prove that poverty wasn't her identity. He listened, nodding, as if memorizing every word. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a small card. It wasn't flashy, just simple and clean. "This is my office number," he said. "Call after the holidays. We might be able to help." She stared at the card, confused and overwhelmed. She didn't know who he really was, but she felt that the offer was real. The girl stood to leave, pulling her coat tighter around herself. The cafe felt warmer now, brighter somehow. She looked back at the man, her voice steady this time. "I hope one day I can sit anywhere without asking that question." He smiled, meeting her gaze. "You will," he replied confidently. She walked toward the door, shoulders lighter than when she had entered. Other customers watched her go, unaware of the silent miracle they had just missed. The man returned to his coffee, now cold, but he didn't mind. His thoughts were warmer than any drink. The door closed behind her, and snow swallowed her small figure as she disappeared into the street. The man sat quietly, reflecting on how easily people confuse wealth with worth. He had attended countless board meetings, signed million-dollar deals, yet this moment felt more important than all of them combined. Around him, Christmas music played softly, lyrics about peace and goodwill echoing through the cafe. He realized those words meant little unless lived out in small, human moments. He finished his coffee, finally standing to leave, coat draped neatly over his arm. As he paid and walked toward the door, the waiter thanked him, unaware of who he truly was. The man nodded politely, stepping back into the cold. Snowflakes landed on his shoulders, melting instantly, like fleeting thoughts. Across the street, the girl looked back at the cafe one last time, the card clutched tightly in her hand. The lights glowed warmly against the dark evening, a symbol of something she would never forget. Her steps felt stronger now, more certain. Days later, she would tell her mother about the stranger who listened, who didn't judge. She would replay his words over and over, letting them drown out the doubts she'd carried for years. Christmas would pass, but that moment would stay. For the man, the memory followed him too. In meetings and interviews, surrounded by luxury, he thought of the girl's question. It reminded him why he built his success, to open doors, not guard them. The cafe returned to normal, chairs filled by new faces, stories beginning and ending unnoticed. Yet something invisible lingered there, a reminder that kindness leaves marks no decoration can replace. Winter slowly turned into spring, but the lesson remained timeless. Wealth could buy comfort, but humanity created meaning. A single chair, offered without judgment, had changed 2 lives. The girl would call the number one day, voice still shy but hopeful. And the man would remember her instantly, because some moments refused to fade. In a world divided by status and silence, their meeting stood as quiet proof that compassion doesn't require permission. It only requires noticing. The question that once sounded small echoed loudly now, challenging assumptions, breaking walls, inviting empathy. And somewhere, in a Christmas cafe glowing against the snow, an empty chair waited, forever reminding anyone who saw it that no seat is meant only for the rich.